Okay, so this is my second attempt at recording my responses for the Module 4 reflection. I really look horrible. I did go for a run earlier and it shows. Anyway, so the first question was, how does the video address your experience when your eyes are closed and the computer is muted? With the eyes closed, there's narration to explain what is strictly visual on the screen, including written text identifying who the different speakers were. And with the mute on, there was captioning to get sounds and dialogue that was strictly auditory. And then the second part of that question, what did Microsoft do to ensure you could still participate? And I wrote down in my notes that when we're showing a video, the two main things are, it's like a visual and it's auditory. That's, I guess, what videos are. And so what they did was they made sure that you had both of those presented in the other format. So anything that was strictly visual, there was an auditory version of it that was narrating what was happening on the screen, and anything that was strictly auditory, like dialogue between people or sounds, was covered in the captioning. In terms of my current practice on a scale of 1 to 10, I gave myself a 7. I've had students in my class that are visually impaired, and I've had plenty of DHH students. And so I'm aware of needing to meet those needs and adjust my teaching practice, but I'm not always really intentional about it. And sometimes we'll rely on students to come to me and tell me, hey, I'm having trouble with X, Y, or Z. So I'm not as intentional or on top of things as I could be there. The second part of that question, did viewing this video make you think about creating new and more accessible options? Yes, but I kind of put an asterisk by that, because when I had my eyes open and it wasn't muted and I was still watching it, having all of those things in place was actually confusing to me. There was the narration, but it was overlapping some of the dialogue. And so I could either hear the narration or hear the dialogue, or the captioning did not align with what was visually happening on the screen quite right. And it was confusing at the beginning to figure out what is this video even about, because there was too much for me to try to pay attention to. So what I had written down was, it's really, really imperative to know my 504s and my IEPs, to know the students that are coming into my classroom and what their specific needs are, because providing all the accommodations is not the answer to that anyway. And we don't want to inadvertently overstimulate certain students, giving them too much to listen to and too many things to look at, and then they end up like missing what's going on. What 2 accessibility tools would I utilize or teach my students to utilize first? And then how would students benefit from those? The first one that I thought of, just because of the student population that I teach, was the immersive reader, which came from earlier in Module 4, didn't really relate to this video specifically, but I have a lot of English language learners at all ends of the spectrum, from I wouldn't even know that they were, to they just came here and don't know any English at all. And so I thought that some of the immersive reader strategies with translation, specifically being able to translate written text into a language that they're comfortable with, would be really, really, really beneficial. And I can't necessarily assume that my students know how to do that. The second one was more from this video, and that's just making sure that I have that captioning available, and that my students know how to access the captioning, instead of me waiting for them to say, hey, I need captioning, but going to them and taking that initiative and making sure that they know how to access it. And the captioning can also benefit students that are learning English, or students that might have trouble concentrating, or, as they mentioned in the video, that primary use of captioning is in places like gyms where it's really noisy or hard to hear. I think it's pretty clear how students can benefit from that, and again, making sure that students have what they need, but that I'm not overwhelming them with more than they need.